Hello. In this video, we're going to take a look at creating some textures, saving them in the photo library, and then bringing them into Procreate. So in this case, I have 5 photos of various textures. And first, what I'm going to do is create an album for them. So I'm hitting the select button and I'm selecting all 5 images. And then what I'm going to go do is go over to the the left side and go down to My Albums. If I scroll to the bottom of My Albums, there's an option to add a new album. Let's see what we end up with. There it is. At the very bottom, it says New Album. So you hit the plus sign, and I'm going to call this Textures 2022. I might already have a texture file, so I want to make sure that I have this one separated out. Hit the Save button, and these photos will be added to that new album. Note that when you create an album, you're not actually moving them. An album is more just an organization, so you can get to a subset of your photos. They'll still be in your all photos. So here we're going to switch over, hop into Procreate. And in this case, I'm just going to create a standard size, screen size drawing. So here we go. Let's bring in one of those textures. Going to Actions, Add, insert a photo. In this case, I'm going to show how you can go to the Albums option. And I'm just going to select, in this case, that middle texture. This is some kind of tan ultra suede. Now you'll see that the blue arrow at the top left is highlighted, so we can manipulate this. We can zoom in, we can rotate this a bit. In this case, I'm just going to use 2 fingers to zoom in a bit on that particular texture, just to make it a little bit more coarse. Now I'm going to add a layer for me to draw into. I'm going to add some bright colors here. I'm just going to grab one of my favorite brushes from the painting library. I really like just the old round brush. Gonna plop down some vibrant colors, bring in some darker values, black and white, and a few gray scale tones in between. There's the medium gray, there's about 25% dark gray, and a 25% light. I'll also bring in some other colors from the hues. So let's play with the blend mode. Right now, both of them, the blend mode on both layer 1 and 2 is set to normal. This works just like stacking all the old cells they used in animation. So I'm clicking on the N, and I'm first going to multiply. There's darken, color burn, linear burn. I'll just take a look and see how these work. Now, if we go down to luminosity, that's kind of a fun case. So this is just picking up totally the hue from the underlying layer. So we have that brown ultra suede. So all of our hue from our drawing layer has been replaced with that just that pure brown. So here I've hopped back into the Photos app, and let's take a little bit more look at these textures. What I'd like to do is get rid of the color, and let's just make them monochrome. That allows us to have a little bit more control while we're doing some of our blend modes. So I'm hopping into the edit mode, and you'll see over on the far left, there's kind of three icons. There's one that looks like a volume control. Underneath it, there's a item that shows three circles. That's for the filter control. And then the crop tool is the one below that. But we're going to use the filter tool in this example. So we're going to go back up to filter. And what we're going to do is there's a filter called monochrome. Excuse me, it's called mono. And basically what that does is it pretty much removes all the color from it. Some of the other filters are very useful. But in this case, we're going to go through and we're going to edit all 5 of these textures that we captured. And basically using the same process, go up, hit the edit button, switch over to filters, slide down over on the right to mono and say done. And then we'll slide over to the next and do the process again. Hit edit, hit the filter, slide down to mono, and say done. Now you notice I had 2 versions of this concrete. One has a little bit more cracks in it. I thought that would be a fun one to have. Maybe it gives you more of an appearance of a fresco. So we've turned all 5 of our textures into monochrome. So let's go back into Procreate. We'll open up our same drawing that we have been working with. And what we'll do is we'll insert the monochromatic version of this texture into our Procreate drawing. Again, I still have the blue arrow available, so I'm going to zoom in there a little bit with the 2-finger pinch out. Bring in a little bit more of that crunchy texture. Click on the blue arrow to dismiss that, and then adjust it so I can see all 4 sides of the drawing. Now, when you're looking through these, it's always fun to pay attention to what colors disappear and reappear. So I always like to have a grayscale going from white to black with a couple of middle values in between. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I want to take a look at this layer, just see how gray it is. So I'm going to go into the adjustments, but choose Gaussian blur. And I'm going to blur it. Here I'm at 29%. But you see that layer is pretty much just a medium, maybe a medium light gray. So what I'm going to do is, let's play with how dark that layer is by using adjustments within Procreate. So again, I'm going to go up to the adjustment layer. Excuse me, the adjustments panel. Hue, saturation, and brightness. And I'm going to use that brightness control. Going to make it much lighter. Now you'll only see a few speckles of the texture. So now when I say multiply, pretty much seeing all my drawing. There's just a little bit of the texture applied. Now what happens if we replace our drawing with an actual photograph? Let's go back to my photo library. I'm going to insert a photo of some flowers that don't have too much texture. So here we have some freesias. We've brought those in. We've filled the screen with them. And what I'll do is I'll go adjust their blend mode. Here's multiply. See, it's just adding a little bit of texture to it when we zoom in. Maybe not the best texture for this particular composition. So let's perhaps take a look at some other options. So let's take a different texture and let's grab a wild one. Okay, so we've definitely added texture. This is more of a special effect at this point rather than a great composition. But let's see what we can do with this. So let's adjust how dark this is. So I'm going to lighten that up. We're getting a little bit of the texture coming through. Now this is that concrete texture. It's not probably not the best with this photo, but it is something you can play with. Now we could go even wilder. Here's this water hog matte detail, and I'm going to zoom in on it even further. Kind of end up with some chunky kind of shapes. Let's do some adjustments on that. Going to make that chunky texture very dark. So in this case, I'm actually adjusting the wrong layer. Let's go back up to the photo layer. And don't forget, you do have that opacity slider when you're applying any of these blend modes. Now we can also play with rearranging and seeing how having the texture on top affects the image below. Again, this is a lot of experimentation. Sometimes it makes no difference which is on top, which is on bottom. Here, the color burn has created quite the flame effect. Let's go back, put the photo on top. Let's put our texture back to normal. Our inserted image is back to multiply. But let's take our inserted image of that texture and switch back over to one of the lighter ones. So here we're using multiply. We're using this texture of the concrete. Here is the texture of the concrete with our little abstract blobs on there. So let's play with this a little bit and see what we can come up with. So you have these brush marks. You kind of get the feeling that, at least I do, that this is more of a fresco now. You can almost feel the pigment going into the wet plaster. So play with the textures you capture. Remember, you can adjust them up and down as far as how dark or how light the texture is. And that'll give you different results based on the different blend modes you're using. Again, most of this is try it, see if you can find something that you like. If it works, great. If it doesn't, try something else. Have fun with this.